Hi, everyone. Lisa and Dan here from Fireside Strategic. We're on a mission to help business leaders achieve great results through human-centered strategy. We believe the businesses don't need to choose between investing in their humans and generating profit, because it's the humans that create profit. In the Fireside Chat series, we're showcasing how leaders are transcending the challenges of the COVID-19 crisis and more broadly, uniting strategic and human thinking and leadership. Today, we're excited to chat with David Long, CEO of MyEmployees. David, thank you so much for joining us today. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Tell me about myself. Is that what you said?
That's what I said.
I started the company 31 years ago in my mom and dad's garage, one of those American success stories.
Amazing.
After losing my job, I struggled for 3.5 years. Ultimately had to move back home with my wife and 3 kids back in with my parents in their little old 1,340 square foot home in Carolina Beach, North Carolina. Oh, and my baby brother still lived at home. So 8 people, 1,300 square feet, a bit jammed up. And we went on to do 10.5 million in business. We do clients, we do employee engagement and recognition programs for companies like Walmart. We have over 1,000 Walmarts. We have probably over 500 at least, FedEx, Outback Steakhouse, tons of hotels, restaurants, not so much right now. We'll get those back, I'm sure, but that's what we do primarily. We take care of their employee recognition programs.
So if we were to, and I know that we don't have a ton of time together today, but if you were to go back to David with family in parents' basement and think about where you are today, right? $10.5 million company. What are the first couple of sort of major thoughts that come to mind about how you pulled this off? How'd you do it?
Well, first and foremost, persistence. You've heard about the story about the general took all his troops and they went and they landed on the opposing army's soil, and he said, burn all the ships. And we're not going back. We're going to be here. We're going to conquer. Same situation. I had no fallback plan to do. There was nothing else to do but move forward. So when you have that, the motivation of living with your mom and dad, I worked long and I worked hard. And I could have moved out of there in 6 months, Dan, but I decided instead of moving into an apartment, I would move into a home that I owned. So we moved out in 1 year and 4 months into a house that we bought. So I did not want to take a temporary step when I could take the whole step. And I just wanted to have my own house again.
So persistence, okay, that's one big part of it.
Yeah.
1 or 2 other thoughts come to mind that are really, really crucial about how you did it?
Yes, I don't know if you're familiar with the term Kaizen. It's Japanese for continuous improvement. And I try to practice that in every area of my life. I constantly read. I read about 3 hours a day. Even back then, I was reading about an hour a day. And, you want small incremental changes of constantly improving everything within your company. So that is a principle that I live by that I think everyone should. And I think the fact that people, someone once said that not all readers are leaders, but all leaders are readers. And I will agree with that. The best people, the ones that are constantly innovating, to be able to do that, you have to constantly learn and try new things.
I love that. Such important philosophies to live by.
So
why employee engagement? What inspired this particular company? Why this service?
You'd have to go back to high school for me, actually. I was engraving jewelry when I was in high school. And I paid my way through school later doing that. And then I left it entirely. And then when I lost my job, I happened to have engraving equipment that was doing little stuff on the side. When I lost my job, I looked at that and I said, you know what, I'm going to have to figure this out to be able to make this my life. So I was engraving for Circuit City back in the day, was my biggest account. We had 3/4 of the circuit cities in the country. And we don't have time for that, but they bid rigged it, gave it to somebody else, and they ultimately went out of business anyway. But poetic justice, I guess we could say. But I actually was doing, like I said, 75% of their stores. And it was just engraving per se, but then I had to understand, quickly I realized, you know what, if I don't remind these people that they need to recognize their people, they're not ordering the nameplates from me for their plaques. So I said, okay, so I've got to create this system whereby I remind them every month, Dan, I need your monthly winners for May. That kind of thing, right? So we created that system, which is one of the things that differentiates us from everybody else. People will sign up for something and people don't realize that when you sign up for employee recognition, they'll put a plaque on the wall, 3 months. It's the same principle as buying a new car for the first 3 months. Hey, you're waving at the neighbors. Hey, look at me, that kind of thing, right? You got the new car smell and all that kind of stuff. After 3 months, it's a payment. So I say all that to say this. I started not with the idea of employee engagement, but in realizing employee recognition is huge. But I needed to understand the aspect of employee engagement and what drives them. So I constantly educated myself and my people on that. And that really is what motivates a leader to continue with employee recognition, is because they find out, if I do this right, then my employees will be more engaged, not only with me, but with the company overall. So it's very, very important as far as recognition goes, that you tie it. And one of the things that we do, we tie employee recognition to the goals of the company. We incentivize, we teach them how to incentivize the results per se, what we're after. We incentivize that with the employees so that they focus on the things that make the company more successful. And thereby they also make the employees more successful. So it's a win-win.
Really interesting. One of the big things I've noticed through now some years of executive coaching is many CEOs I speak to, when I begin working with them, are not really clear on what their goals actually are. So it's one thing to create a vision, right? And to move, to get everyone aligned in the direction of moving for that vision. Mm-hmm. But I'm curious whether part of what you do, in addition to providing the service of employee recognition and tying it to company goals, is actually helping companies clarify what their goals are in the first place.
Absolutely. It reinforces it, what the goals are.
That's so smart. Such a beautiful alignment. It makes a lot of sense from a business standpoint, but also from a human standpoint. Mm-hmm. Looking inwards, could you tell us a little bit about the culture at your own firm?
I tell you the number one thing that I've done at my company, and I started this over 15, 16 years ago now, is when I was traveling one time, I ended up going to one of these discount book places. And I found this book, and it was the 12 Essential Laws for Becoming Indispensable. And it was by Dr. Tony Zeiss, who is, by the way, of Central Piedmont Community College in North Carolina. It's a community college network up in Charlotte. And it's, by the way, it's the largest community college network in the nation. So he wrote this book, and I read it, and I said, man, I got to share this with my people. So when I got back, I contacted him and this producer, who handled the book distribution. I said, I need another 11 of these books. And so they sent them to me, and I called all my people in the break room, and I said, here, passed out the books, passed out a highlighter, here's a notebook. Next Wednesday, I'm going to order pizza. We're going to come in here and we're going to talk about chapter 1. So read chapter 1 between now and then. And they all looked at me like I'd lost my stinking mind. And I'm like, all right, now hang on. I said, I'm going to, feed you while I feed your mind. So we did that until the company got so big that we couldn't do that really. And people wanted to get their breaks done or take their kid to the doctor or that kind of thing on lunch. So we stopped doing that. For the last decade or longer, we actually pay our employees to meet in the break room. We have 35 employees now. And we pay them to be in the training room, not break room, training room, where we all are in there. We actually put the voicemail on, it catches the phone. We say we are training our people, and we are usually in there from 9:30 to 10:30 or going on 10:45 or 11 or whatever, every Wednesday. So we constantly teach our people. By the way, book club, I pay them to be in the room. It costs me upwards of probably $60,000, $70,000 a year now, somewhere in that area, to have them in the room. But here's the thing. We read books that are not business related. By that, I mean, we did like Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Why? Because it makes them better people. It makes them a better spouse, a father, a mother, a sibling, a friend, a coworker. So we do things like that. I also did Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University. Years ago, I would have people come to me all the time and borrow money. So I said, I got to teach my people how to manage their money better. So I bought that course, and we did it. We've done it 3 times since then. But it used to be where I had people come to me probably once a month, every 2 months at the most. between asking me for money, borrow money. Hey, can you spot me money till payday and this kind of thing. So after we started doing that, I can count on one hand how many people have come to me in the last probably 7 to 10 years. That's a huge difference. I make them better people overall. And as a result, they become better employees. They take care of our clients better. They work together better. I get along with them better. Everybody gets along better, in their personal lives. I cannot begin to tell you. I'll give you one example, and it'll be a brief one. One of the girls that works with us, we read a book called Crucial Conversations, and she recounted the story. After she got the courage, she actually talked to her mother-in-law. They went for a walk, and she was talking to her. And she said, I want you to know, I know you probably don't mean to demean me by all the things you say. I just want you to know that hurts me. And the mother-in-law was like in shock, right? I mean, you think but she didn't. So I remember, I don't want to say her name, but one of our employees, and she's a dear, sweet lady, no doubt about it. But she tearfully recounted that story, how reading that book in book club that I paid her to be in impacted her life and relationship with her mother-in-law and completely changed the dynamics of that relationship. So that's a win for me and for everyone involved.
That's it. Not only is she now more loyal to the company,
right.
she's a better human being, and better human beings serve customers much more effectively, right?
Absolutely.
It's all, you're building a virtuous circle, right?
There is no downside.
Yeah. And it's so interesting you say that. I started my career in corporate law, where we all have a very funny relationship to time. So every billable hour matters so much. You got to squeeze the most out of every single minute. And the notion of having employees take potentially billable hours to go learn in that environment is completely nuts, right?
And I'm telling you, it is the number one most impactful thing I've done in my literally 50-year business career. I started a paper out at age 11, so that counts too. And I actually had an employee that worked with me. I paid him under the table. But so, I mean, I'm 62, so that's legitimately 50 years ago. But, that's the thing about it, is the beautiful thing is that you develop people. And that comes back to me. I actually had a gentleman, I interviewed him for my company, and he's out in California. And he sent me the sweetest email, and it said in there, I've never read a book after high school. And he said, I got your book and it sat on a shelf for a couple of years. And he said, one day I said, I need to read that book. So he got it down and he read it. And he sends me this email after he read the book. And he says, your book's changed my life. He said, I'm getting up every day. My wife's wondering who I am. I've never read a book. And my daughters are going, what are you doing? Stuff like that. I mean, it just blew him away. And now and I just interviewed him not even a week ago, and he's already read 3 books. This is a guy, like the typical American, doesn't read a book a year. So, I mean, his life, he puts that to me and gives me credit for that because he read my book. It changed his life. I love that. Man, that's a lot more than important than money to me. A lot more.
I think that's amazing. You've built as Dan said, a virtuous cycle where you really build up the people who build up your company in return. That's very much aligned with our company ethos in general. Changing gears a little bit, one of the things that inspired this entire interview series for us was how leaders are managing and transcending the challenges of COVID-19. Would you mind just telling us a little bit about what was going on at your company before the crisis and how things have changed, and more importantly, how you dealt with these challenges?
Well, first of all, I think every leader needs to have a line in the sand and a strategy before you need the strategy. A smart general always knows where the opposition or the enemy is. That's why he puts scouts out. So I'm always paying attention. I read about 3 hours a day now. So I'm paying attention to what's going on in the economy as well that I knew would affect me. And I've seen issues in the country where people were making foolish mistakes, both personal and corporate. Record personal debt, record corporate debt. So I pay attention to those kind of things. And as a result, I was not really massively surprised. Was I surprised about the virus? Yes. Was I surprised about the economic issues that it caused? No. I will say that I was surprised at the severity and how quickly it was. But I say all that to say this. I knew what was going to happen. And by the way, I've repeatedly down through the years in book club told my employees, here's the situation. I've never laid off anybody in the history of the company, ever. We, in 2008, in 2009, we grew by 35%. 2010, we grew by 41%. 2016, we lost 35% of our clients through mergers and acquisitions. And we lost 42% of our profits. I laid no one off. We have no corporate debt. I have no personal debt. So I tell my people, there are advantages to working for someone who has that kind of situation. But I said, if there ever comes a day, and I knew it would come, when the economy had serious enough issues that we had to let people go, I'm preparing you for that day. I'm telling you what you need to do to be ready. I'm also telling you that I added you, or we added you when we need you. We didn't add you just to put somebody in an office. We needed you, we brought you on. If the company is decimated, I will be at the front door crying with you, but I will let you go if it gets to be that bad. Please, knowing that, prepare accordingly. And when this happened, when they shut down basically the economy on hotels and restaurants, guys, that's 40% of our business. 40%. So we let 19 of our 49 people go. Since then, we brought back 4. They're all salespeople. They are straight commission. And thankfully, they are actually paying for themselves. And you want to know why I initially let that many people go? Because my people were in tears. I mean, decimated. They were calling people up and some of them were even getting mad. Why are you calling me? You're not aware of what's going on? So it was like people were having sick days and they just weren't showing up. They were emotionally drained. So we made the decision, okay, we're going to let you go. I'm going to let you go on unemployment. Let's see what happens. I paid a gajillions into unemployment over the years, good grief. So I said, because this is going to be a much bigger deal, I'll let you go ahead and get unemployment and we'll bring you back as we can. And I've kept my word on that so far. Like I said, we brought 4 people back and they're doing great. So I'm very happy with that. But initially I was going to let more of our salespeople go because they were the ones taking the brunt of the abuse, the verbal abuse. So we had one of our or 2 of our salespeople that made sales, and I allowed the management team to suggest to me, hey, maybe this is not as bad as you think. After about 8-9 days, they came back and said, we made a mistake. People are getting beat down. Let's let them take off 2 weeks. I paid them while they were off, and we brought them back. That was the way to go. Because enough of the shock has gone by that people are starting to determine their new normal so that they're not emotionally vulnerable right now. So that's been successful. And, the plan is we want to be able to continue to bring our people back. In the meantime, they're getting unemployment, which I've never laid off anybody in my life. And I had a lot of my friends because I speak on culture and then develop employees and everything. That's what I do. It's part of my job. And I had people going, you laid people off? This must be serious. I said, yes, it is. And I was right. Look how many people have been laid off after that.
I think you shared so many smart strategic tips, and there's so many layers. One is caring about the people, but also retaining that flexibility in your staff. And the first piece you mentioned was just having the cash reserves. It's and not having debt. It's such a simple but very, very important strategy for surviving any crisis as a business. And the way that you've been so responsible in your personal, professional life and in your business is the reason it sounds like your business is still, doing well and bringing people back. That's really impressive.
Yeah. Let me give you a huge upside from this situation. Years ago, we tried to do remote people. Didn't work. It would slow down the server and everything. And since then, we've gone on Amazon servers. This is not a commercial for Amazon, but it works a lot better for us, And we had really struggled with this remote thing. We never had any success with it. This COVID-19 situation forced us to dial that in. As a result, by the way, we had the deputy sheriffs come out to our business. We have a 20,000 square foot office building. We had 10 people in there engraving and mailing and, accounts receivable to keep the business going. And everyone else, we allowed them to take their computer home, and they dialed into our servers on Amazon, and we didn't miss a beat. I mean, to tell you, I should say we didn't miss a beat. In the first week or so, there were challenges that we got the bugs out. But after that, we've been crushing it. And 3/4 of our people are working from home. Now, some of our people are probably going to want to stay home because they drive further than others. So that's an option before they did not have. And by the way, the main takeaway from that is before, we've always relied on salespeople in our area. There's like 270,000 people in our county, right, of the general area. Well, dialing in this remote thing just opened us up to hiring the best from all over the country. So that is a huge win for us. And I'm excited about that.
100%, right? We don't realize sometimes what opportunities crises can bring.
Absolutely.
And to have that kind of opportunity is absolutely tremendous. So I totally agree.
I can give you another example of that if you want to hear it.
Sure, give us one more.
Okay. Years ago when I started my company, I had another company copy me. They almost copied my name, and the guy's name was David. So he was calling my client base, and he was confusing them. They thought they were dealing with me. That wasn't the case. Wow. So him and another guy, two of them, one of me. So I used to travel the southeastern United States from Virginia, Tennessee, down to Texas, and everything southeast of those states. And I traveled a lot. And when I realized what was going on, I figured out I've got to come up with a better way. I've got to innovate. And as a result, I created the sample system where I physically, Dan, would ship a walnut laser engraved plaque to the prospect. And oh my, that was a blessing in disguise. I obliterated those people. They're not in business anymore. But I was able to get ahead of them by shipping the plaque as a sample. And I would follow up and I would talk to them about it and I would sign them up. Even back then, I was signing up 1 out of 3 people I sent those samples to. And that was back in the early 90s.
I like it. It reminds me of, there's an old idea in sales of what's called a shock and awe box. So
there you go. It's exactly right.
Right? Salespeople get in their heads. They love to just have conversations, and it's all about having a conversation. But they often lose sight of the importance of a physical object. We all love physical objects. When you can send something that is so personal and so meaningful to someone, right? No one expects a salesperson to do it. And when you can send a package, right, to a prospect, and there's something very mysterious and compelling about a package. So it's yet another sign, David, of your ability to really understand human nature at a deep level, I think, right?
It's funny because we'd send the plaque, right? It'd have their name on it and everything. But also we put like little Smarties candies in there. Yeah. And you'd be surprised how many Smarties, the little roll of candy. You'd be surprised how many people commented about that candy. It was crazy. It was fun.
Not surprised. It's to make a super corny joke, it's a sweet touch, right?
That's right. Super corny. That's good though.
Yeah. So now that we're moving towards the end of our time together, David, we like to switch gears and ask folks, it's easy to have a serious business conversation at a moment like this, to be concerned for people's lives at moments like this. But we're all still humans that need to have fun and need to find opportunities to bring joy to our lives as much as possible in times like this. So what's been fun for you in this COVID moment? What have you been doing to keep yourself entertained?
Well, we did a garden in the backyard, which I've never done before. That's more of a food security type thing. Distribution is a friend of mine just sent me pictures of Sam's Club the other day. No meat in the meat containers, cases. So you got to have, that's been interesting. I spent more time with my wife, which all my kids are grown. I've got 5 grandkids and we got this huge house and it's all paid for and everything. But I spend more time with her, more quality time, which is good. And with my daughter and my grandsons will come over and play in the pool, things like that, which I'm here more now when they're here. So I really enjoy that aspect. And honestly, I can actually read more. I'm probably reading 5 hours a day now. And, you know, I always, and you know, and you guys are the same way. You make the best of a bad situation and you make it into a positive. You know, there are a lot of people that are sitting around and they're focused on entirely on what they've lost, not on what they have a chance. I'll give you a good example. One of my business friends, he really didn't like his business model. And as a result, he's lost like 80% of his clients, decimated. Now he said, now I have no reason not to change my business model. So he is. So there are many powerful things about that as well.
There's definitely a silver lining in this time. And it's wonderful that you're using this as an opportunity to read, to connect with your family, to get your hands dirty, literally in a garden. I love that. Well, look, David, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today. I think your story is also your mindset are so inspiring, and we're confident that our audience will, you know, learn a little bit about how they too can grow during this time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity, guys.